Hey, you ever wonder what it feels like to be truly terrified? Not jump scare scared, but that deep, primal fear where every instinct in your body screams, run? I'm Raven, and I don't just read horror stories. I make you feel them. I put you right there, in those woods, in that moment, with that fear crawling up your spine. Tonight, 3 people went hiking. 3 people saw things that shouldn't exist, and 3 people barely made it out alive. If you're ready to experience real terror, hit subscribe. You're gonna need it. Now, let's go into the darkness.
Sarah Mitchell loved being alone in the mountains. At 28, she'd hiked solo for years. It was her therapy, her escape from the noise of everyday life. Mount Rainier was her second home. She knew these trails like the back of her hand. September 2019. That's when everything changed. She woke up that morning excited. Fall colors, empty trails, perfect weather. She laced up her boots, threw on her pack, and hit the Skyline Trail at 7 a.m. with a smile on her face. For 2 hours, it was paradise. Sunlight dancing through golden leaves, the crisp mountain air filling her lungs. She passed a few hikers, a couple holding hands, a family with giggling kids, an old man with his dog. Sarah felt safe, happy, free. Then, at mile 4, her stomach dropped. She stopped to take a photo. You know that feeling when someone's watching you? That tingling on the back of your neck? Sarah felt it. She turned around slowly, and there he was. A man, standing absolutely still on the trail behind her, maybe 50 yards back. Just staring, not hiking, not resting, not doing anything, just watching her with an intensity that made her blood run cold. Sarah's mind tried to rationalize it. He's just taking a break. He's looking at the view. You're being paranoid. But her gut knew better. Her gut was screaming. She forced a smile, waved awkwardly, and kept walking. Her heart was already pounding. 10 minutes later, she couldn't help it. She looked back again. He was closer. Still not hiking normally, just following, matching her exact pace. That's when the fear really hit, that pure animal terror that makes your hands shake and your vision narrow. Sarah started walking faster. Her boots slammed against the rocks. Faster, faster. She looked back again. He'd sped up too. Oh God, this is real. This is actually happening. The trail forked ahead. One path led to a popular viewpoint. Maybe there'd be people there, someone who could help. Sarah practically ran toward it, her backpack bouncing violently against her spine. She burst into the clearing, and her heart sank into her stomach. Empty. Completely empty. She spun around, gasping for air, and that's when she saw him up close for the first time. He was tall, wearing a filthy gray hoodie, face mostly hidden in shadow, but his eyes, God, his eyes, they were locked onto her like she was prey, cold, dead, emotionless. The eyes of someone who'd already decided what he was going to do. Sarah's survival training kicked in through the fog of terror. Phone? No signal. Bear spray. She grabbed it with trembling hands and held it up so he could see it. "Can I help you?" Her voice cracked. She hated how scared she sounded. He didn't answer, didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. Sarah's mind raced. She was miles from the parking lot. The only way back was past him. She was trapped, alone, with a predator. Then she remembered the emergency ranger station, a mile ahead. If she could just get there. She started backing away, never taking her eyes off him. Her finger hovered over the bear spray trigger. He tilted his head slowly to one side, studying her like a puzzle he was about to solve. And then he smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not even a crazy smile. Something worse. Something that said, "I know you're going to run, and I'm going to enjoy what happens next." Sarah ran. Everything became a blur of terror and adrenaline. Branches whipped her face, drawing blood. Her lungs felt like they were on fire. Her backpack slammed against her back with every desperate stride. But she didn't dare look back. She just ran like her life depended on it. Because it did. Time lost all meaning. Seconds, minutes, hours, she had no idea. Until finally, she heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Voices, human voices. 4 college kids with huge backpacks came around a bend, laughing about something. They saw Sarah's face, wild-eyed, bleeding, gasping, and immediately knew something was horribly wrong. "Help!" Sarah collapsed against a tree, her legs giving out. "There's a man. He was following me. He was going to—" 2 of the guys didn't hesitate. They ran back up the trail with her, shouting, making as much noise as possible. Sarah's whole body was shaking so hard she could barely walk. When they reached the viewpoint, nothing. No one. The man had vanished, like he was never there at all. They searched everywhere. No footprints besides Sarah's. No broken branches. No trace of anyone. One of the kids put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Maybe he went off trail, or maybe in the panic I know what I saw." Sarah's voice came out harder than she meant it. "He was real. Those eyes were real." The group believed her enough to walk her all the way back to the parking lot. Sarah reported everything to the park rangers. They promised increased patrols, they took notes, they were professional and kind, but they never found him. To this day, Sarah refuses to hike alone. She still loves the mountains. That part of her hasn't died, but now she goes with friends. Always. And she carries more than bear spray, because late at night when she's trying to fall asleep, she still sees those cold, dead eyes staring at her, still sees that smile. And she can't stop asking herself the question that haunts her dreams. What would he have done if I hadn't run? What did he want?
In October 2017, 3 friends, Jake, Marcus, and Devin, decided to do a weekend camping trip in the Chattahoochee National Forest in Georgia. They were all in their mid-20s, experienced outdoorsmen who'd grown up camping and hiking together. They planned to hike 5 miles into a remote area, set up camp near a stream, and spend 2 nights completely off-grid. No other campers, no cell service, just nature. The hike in was beautiful. The forest was alive with autumn colors, and the trail was well marked. They reached their campsite around 4 p.m., a clearing beside a small creek surrounded by massive oak trees. "This is perfect," Marcus said, dropping his pack. They set up their tents, built a fire ring, and cooked dinner as the sun set. Everything was normal, peaceful. But around 10 p.m., Devin noticed something odd. "Hey, do you guys see that?" He pointed across the creek. About 100 yards into the dense forest, there was a light, a faint, flickering orange glow, like another campfire. "Huh," Jake said. "Guess we're not as alone as we thought." They didn't think much of it. Lots of people camped in the national forest, but what was strange was that they hadn't seen anyone else on the trail, and this was supposed to be a pretty isolated area. "Should we go say hi?" Marcus suggested. "Nah," Devin said. "Let's just let them be. We came out here for privacy anyway." They agreed and settled in for the night. But around 2 a.m., Jake woke up to a sound. Voices. Distant but definitely human voices coming from the direction of that other campsite. He unzipped his tent and listened. The voices were strange, rhythmic, almost like chanting. The fire across the creek was still burning, brighter now. Jake woke Marcus and Devin. All three of them stood outside their tents, listening. "That's weird," Devin whispered. The chanting continued for maybe 10 minutes, then abruptly stopped. The forest went silent. Even the crickets seemed to have disappeared. Then they heard footsteps, heavy, crunching through the underbrush, moving toward the creek. "Get back in the tents," Jake hissed. They dove into their tents and waited, hearts pounding. The footsteps got closer, stopped at the edge of the creek, then nothing. After an hour of terrified silence, exhaustion finally pulled them back to sleep. When they woke up the next morning, the first thing they did was look across the creek. The campsite was gone. No fire ring, no tents, no trash, no sign anyone had ever been there. "Maybe it was farther away than we thought," Marcus suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. They decided to investigate. They crossed the creek and walked to the exact spot where they'd seen the fire. The ground was undisturbed. No burn marks, no footprints, nothing. "This doesn't make sense," Devin said, his voice tight with anxiety. Jake noticed something else. "Guys, look at the trees." The oak trees surrounding the clearing where they'd seen the light were covered in strange markings, deep, deliberate carvings, symbols that didn't look like any language they recognized. "We need to leave," Marcus said. "Right now." They packed up their campsite in record time and started hiking back to the trailhead. But something was wrong. The trail they had taken in, the well-marked, easy-to-follow trail, was gone. Not overgrown, not covered, just gone. "This is the right way, isn't it?" Devin asked, panic creeping into his voice. They checked their compass. According to it, they were headed in the right direction, but nothing looked familiar. The forest seemed darker, denser. The trees pressed in on them from all sides. They hiked for hours. By midday, they should have reached the parking lot. Instead, they found themselves in a part of the forest none of them recognized. "We're going in circles," Jake said, checking the GPS on his phone, which showed no signal and refused to load any maps. That's when Marcus saw it. The clearing. Their clearing. The campsite they just packed up and left hours ago. Their tents were gone, but the fire ring they'd built was there. The creek was there. "No," Devin breathed. "No, no, no, no." They ran, picked a direction and just ran, branches tearing at their clothes, hearts hammering in their chests. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they burst out onto a road, an actual paved road. A passing car stopped, and the confused driver gave them a ride to the nearest town. When they checked the map, they realized they'd come out nearly 12 miles from where they'd parked, on the opposite side of the forest. The park rangers they spoke to had no record of any campsites in the area they described. The symbols carved into the trees, the rangers had no explanation. Jake, Marcus, and Devin never went back to that forest. They don't talk about that trip much anymore, but sometimes, late at night, They all wonder the same thing. Whose campsite did they really see that night? And what would have happened if they'd crossed a creek to say hello?
Amy Rodriguez and her boyfriend Tyler loved backpacking. In the summer of 2020, they planned a 3-day trek through the wilderness of Northern California in the remote Marble Mountain area. It was supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime. Beautiful scenery, complete isolation, just the two of them and nature. Day 1 was perfect. They hiked 10 miles, made camp near a pristine alpine lake, cooked dinner, and fell asleep under the stars. Day 2 started normal. They woke early, had breakfast, and continued deeper into the wilderness. The trail was rugged but manageable. They saw deer, heard birds, even spotted an eagle circling overhead. But around 3 p.m., something changed. Tyler stopped walking. "Do you hear that?" Amy listened. At first she heard nothing. Then a sound, faint but unmistakable. Footsteps, keeping pace with them but off the trail, hidden in the dense forest. "Probably a deer," Amy said, though her voice was uncertain. They kept hiking. The footsteps continued. Then came the smell, rotten, putrid, like something had died and been left to decay in the summer heat. "God, what is that?" Tyler gagged, covering his nose. The smell was so strong it made their eyes water, but there was nothing visible. No dead animals, no trash, nothing that could explain the stench. They quickened their pace, desperate to get away from whatever was causing the smell. But the footsteps followed, always just out of sight, always maintaining the same distance. Then the sun began to set. They reached their planned campsite, a small clearing beside a stream, but neither of them wanted to stop. "Let's keep going," Amy said. "Maybe we can find another spot." "It's getting dark," Tyler argued. "If we keep hiking, we might get lost." Reluctantly, they agreed to make camp, but they kept their bear spray close and built the fire bigger than necessary. As darkness fell, the footsteps stopped. For about an hour, everything was quiet. Amy and Tyler began to relax, chalking the whole experience up to paranoia and an overactive imagination. Then Tyler saw it. "Amy," he whispered, his voice trembling, "don't move, don't make a sound, but look at the tree line, 3 o'clock." Amy slowly turned her head. There was something in the trees. Tall. Impossibly tall. At least 8 or 9 feet tall. It stood completely still, partially hidden behind a massive pine tree about 50 feet from their campsite. At first, Amy thought it might be a bear standing on its hind legs, but the proportions were all wrong. Too thin, too tall, and the way it stood, perfectly upright, perfectly still, wasn't natural. What is that?" Amy breathed. As if in response, the thing shifted slightly. And that's when they saw its eyes. They reflected the firelight like an animal's, but they were positioned wrong, too high up, too far apart, and they were watching them, studying them. "We need to leave," Tyler said, already reaching for their packs. "It's pitch black. We'll never find the trail. I don't care. We're leaving now." They grabbed their essentials, tent, packs, and flashlights, and started moving. The thing in the trees didn't move. It just watched them go. They stumbled through the forest in the dark, following the trail by flashlight, branches scratching their faces, hearts pounding so hard they could hear it in their ears. Behind them, they heard movement, slow, deliberate, following. "Run," Tyler said. They ran. Amy doesn't remember most of that night. It's a blur of terror, exhaustion, and adrenaline. They ran until their legs gave out, then walked, then ran again. When the sun finally rose, they found themselves back on a main trail. They hiked as fast as they could until they reached a ranger station. The ranger listened to their story with a strange expression. When they finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You're not the first," he finally said.